So Kirk and I, we got this talk together, and and shortly before the talk, he sort of distracted me, and put up the slides, and all of a sudden he, in my slide deck, he'd put in two pictures. One was of some goats in Crete, and the other one was of some knights fighting in Hungary, and that was his introduction. So be very careful of Kirk. What do I do? You need to come to the stage and join us.
Yeah. So Kirk, Kirk, you need to come to this stage, and please see your tweet because the link is there, right? So, so let me tell you this thing, Heinz. So Kirk was talking to me, and we're thinking about what we're gonna do here in this conversation, everything. And he wanted to talk about all kinds of different things. But one thing that he said, you know what? I work with Heinz a lot, and Heinz had this, like the story you told us here, right? He has his father and his grandfather and all his family. It's very business oriented, and so Kirk said, I didn't have a father that told me those things, right?
Yeah.
So actually, the conversation that he wanted to have here is, things that my father had told me that I learned with Kirk, right?
I saw that. I tweeted that. I saw, this is brilliant. It's like I'm talking about stuff my father did tell me, and Kirk said, I wish my father told me this stuff.
Right, exactly. And the reason why he wanted to do this is because he knows exactly that story, right? So I think it's going to be a back-to-back conversation. That's going to be awesome. So actually, and at the moment we're talking about him, that he comes, right? So let's just see. So Kirk Pepperdine is here with us on the stage.
Can you finally hear me?
Now we can.
There's Kirk.
There you are. Nice story about that. That was really fun because the look on your face when you saw the goat come up was just priceless. The audience just, they're just looking at it going like, what's the goat doing up there?
It's like random goats on the Cretan street. It's like, what is my slide deck?
It's really fun. Yeah, I don't think Bruno did the justice. I mean, Heinz, I just love listening to you talk about, some of the things that your father did and everything like that. And my father had the traditional career path. He basically, he worked for Bell Canada, and then he worked for Trans-Canada Telephone Companies, essentially the same thing, right? And that's where he didn't start his career there, but effectively his career was there. And then he retired from there, right? And that's a traditional career. And
I wish I'd seen that, because I've no clue about that stuff.
Yeah, I know. And I think a lot of people, well, maybe people my age, I mean, not so much anymore, really have that type of experience where their parents are just like, go to work at 8, come home at 5, and they work at the same company like forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're retired, and that's it. And there's a nice stability to the whole thing, and there's nothing and a calmness to the whole thing that I guess I experienced that you didn't, because your dad's off like doing this and doing that, and it's like we only get one apricot tonight, so we need to share it between you and all your brothers and sisters.
One of the funniest things was Kirk. He would come home, like once every 3 months or so. He'd come home with all these metal, look like metal gears, like just jag things, and they were like a big box of these things. And what we had to do is we had to, like, all the boys, come here, and we had to take these put them in heaps of like 10 or something. So like get these discs in heaps of 10. So they were coming big, and put them all in heaps of 10. And then but he had this huge markup. I think he had like a 1,000% markup on that stuff. And he'd like get these things, put them into heaps, and then resell them. And these were discs for floor polishing machines, which were polishing like concrete, I've got no idea how he got into this and how, but this weird things happened all the time,
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the oddest thing ever is like, we met online initially because, Heinz is in South Africa. We both became Java champions. And actually, I think we met slightly before that, just randomly through.
For about 6 months before.
Yeah, it was, something like that. And then, so we're talking about Java and all these deep Java things. And then out of the blue comes, oh, I have to go over to my straw factory. I'm like, what? Straw factory? What the heck is a straw factory? Why are we talking about straws? It was just
a string factory.
Every time I see them lying around, I feel a little bit guilty about all these billions of straws that have been made.
So you're responsible for all of the plastic in my diet now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you inherited a straw factory. It's like,
that's right.
Who would have thought? It's like, this is a crazy thing. But the thing is, though, if you have the 9-to-5 job where everything is predictable and stuff like that, then everything is predictable. And there's just so many things that we've encountered in running our separate businesses. We're just like talking to each other, like and I know I'm saying stuff, and you're going like, rookie novice facepalm moment because I saw my dad do that like 100 times, and you really learned a lot of these lessons from him, and it really shows in how you conduct yourself and how you conduct your businesses and how you've organized yourself, and so it's from my perspective, it's really nice to watch. It's just really nice to watch it because I'm going like, wow, look at all this stuff, and it's like I never thought of that, or I wouldn't have thought of that. And it's so obvious that we need to do this, and even some of the decision making you're looking at it's just, I think it's how it's been influenced by your upbringing. It's just really it's really amazing, and I think the experiences you had with your father are so much different than mine. I don't want to disparage my dad. I've had many good experiences with him, but they're just so different. And given where we both have ended up, it's like your experiences have turned out to be so much different. I wouldn't say, I don't want to say the word useful, but just more applicable, I think, for your life experience and everything. I mean, you're running effectively a training consultancy business on Crete, like in the middle of nowhere. And
nowhere, yeah.
and if you think of all of the problems that you have to face on a day-to-day basis just to make that work, it's amazing. Just following your internet connectivity issues is one thing. Like you went from like jaw-dropping expenses to something now I guess more normal. It's just everything day to day. It's just amazing.
Kirk, I've got to just relate one thing which I've learned from you in terms of business, and this is a really important point. And I think that because we started before you came, we were talking about sales, and the one thing which Kirk kept on telling me, and I didn't listen to him in the beginning, is if you get a big like a big customer, or even a small customer, pick up the damn phone and phone them and speak to them. Don't just send an email. Pick up the phone and speak to them. And I've started doing that. I know you used to give me hell about that because I'm talking about like a long time ago. It's 2005, 2006. And I'd say, I don't actually know if this is a real contract or not. I'm not sure if they really are real or if they really want. And you'd say, have you phoned them? And I'd say, no, I don't know if I should phone them. They said, pick up the phone. It's 20,000 euros, you know, pick up the phone. They go like, oh, I don't know. And we send them an email. They go like, no, pick up the phone.
Just go for it.
And now I do that, and this is a tip that I can give to the people is, if you get an inquiry, pick up the phone and speak to them. And what very often happens is, you get an inquiry, you phone them, and actually what they were looking for is completely different to what you thought they were looking for, and you clear that up in 2 minutes, and you either get a really big deal or you get nothing, but you've saved yourself an hour of composing an email, the perfect email, which so this is a tip which I've used a lot from, thanks to you, Kirk.
And Peter Carruthers too, actually. Should we plug Peter Carruthers in here? Because he says the same bloody thing, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it takes 2 or 3 people to learn. But I mean, you told me long before he told me that. So this comes from you.
Yes. Well, the other thing too is like, I think was one of the funniest situations is when we were sitting in the hotel room in Vegas.
That was ridiculous. That was completely ridiculous.
I think you tell the story better than I do. But there's a lot.
Right, so I flew from South Africa to London, and then London to Las Vegas to speak at a conference. What was it called?
TSSJS Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a really nice conference, and but I mean, I flew so long that they felt sorry for me, and they gave me this double suite. This double suite, it was so big that when like my buddies came to visit, they got lost in the room. We didn't know where they were. You know, it literally was that big. I had 2 jacuzzis, not one. I had 2 jacuzzis in Las Vegas. It was just enormous. And then I went to Kirk's room, and I expected Kirk to have an even bigger room, and he had this closet. It was like, basically, we're like sitting next to each other on the chair, and they're trying to find some space. And so this is where I learned Kirk's trick, or it's a trick which we all use nowadays, called the self-defense quote. Right, the self-defense quote.
Yeah. Oh, I guess, yeah. Okay.
And so what happened is, Kirk was talking to the customer, and I was sitting there listening and the customer wanted Kirk to come and fix their problem. Kirk did not want to go and fix the problem, not because he was malicious.
Road trip. I wanted to go home.
You've been on the road for 4 weeks already. You wanted to go home. So it's like, I'm done. I'm going home. Right? And the customer said, we really want to come. And Kirk told them exactly how to fix their problem. I'm sitting there like, don't tell them so much. Like, don't. Quiet. Shh, it's enough. You say, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. You tell them exactly what to do, right? And the funniest bit was when they asked how much is it going to cost, and he named the price, and I was sitting there like trying not to laugh. It was a ridiculous amount of money.
Oh, and I quoted in the wrong currency. I said in euros, not US dollars.
And then he said, and he's like, da 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 da, and he said euro. And there was like a silence on the other side of the phone. And the customer was like, oh my goodness, this person is charging a lot of money. And they said to him, we'll have to speak to the board about that, you know, which is always that's always the response you want, okay? Because I've done jobs where my charge was like basically coffee, you know. And the good thing is because Kirk and they phoned back, how long was it? Like 2 hours later?
30 minutes.
30 minutes later, phone back, said he got the job.
Yes, they said, when can you come in, right? And I think I was like about 50 or 60% over my normal rate, and I put euro at that time was like 40% additional on top.
Yeah, this was ridiculous. It was one-on-one, right? It was like a huge difference.
Like a doubling of the rate and everything like that. But you know, Heinz, you know what I did in that particular instance, right? That project was already down $750,000. And
you saved a lot of money.
And it was a lead-in to a contract that was worth a massive amount of money, right? Yeah. So even the amount I charged, even though it was like a huge amount of money, it was peanuts. It was noise compared to what actually ended up being at the end. And so the value I provided was really good. So I think the lesson learned was that in the interviewing process, by being so precise in what I said, they knew I was going to come in and solve the problem at that point. So I displayed my expertise. They didn't have the capacity or the understanding to execute it themselves. So they needed someone to come in. So I just actually done the perfect sales job in terms of saying, you need me to come in, right? And I did do a defensive quote, but I said it at the point where I said, well, if I get it, I'm going to call my wife, and yeah, she's going to be unhappy until she hears what the check amount will look like in the bank account. So whatever pain and suffering is going to be, and it's going to be like, it's, you know, it's now actually worth
either
it.
way you win, right? You either combine extra stuff for your family, or you don't. You go home. Both.
Right.
Both.
And
both.
I give them enough information to actually do the job anyways properly.
Yeah, they could have done it. Absolutely.
They could have done
what
it.
You told.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the follow-up. You called me afterwards and said, oh, and I said, hey, look at this chart of data and everything like that. I said, how long did it take you to find that? I said, yeah, about I don't know, but it's like about an hour after I walked through the door, given that I had to do meet and greet and talk to the CEO and
So how many thousands of lines of code did you have to write to fix the problem?
13. And on my exit interview, the CEO asked me, how many lines of code did I actually have to write to fix the problem? I said 13. And he looked at me and he says, those are the 13 most expensive lines of code I've ever paid for.
But one interesting thing about charging a lot. Yeah, one interesting thing about charging expensive is that sometimes you need the attention of the board, right? You know, to actually get things done, because a lot of people. No, a lot of people will, a lot of times you come in and you say what needs to be done, and I mean, the developers don't want to do it, or the manager doesn't get the time. They don't involve the database guys to actually listen to you. They don't participate on anything. So there's nothing that you can do. But then you charge something that's expensive, and then they stop everyone and say, look, this guy's really expensive. Go talk to him, and then the problem is actually solve it, right? So a lot of times. This plays a big role there too.
Okay, we gotta roll back to Heinz here. Heinz has a perfect story for this. It's your South African story where you went in and undercharged.
Oh, it's happened so many times.
But this came back to hurt you. It actually hurt you.
So what happened with me was I had a job, and I thought it was a programming job. So I spoke to the customer on the phone, because I thought it's like, I'm going to be there for maybe a month or so, just coding some business logic, and it actually what they actually needed was just a consultant. So I charged a price, and the price was really low. I mean, it was way too low for even for programming was quite low over there. And so when I got there, sorry, on the phone, I diagnosed the problem and I solved the problem for them. Like when I first spoke to him, I said, he told me this and this. I said, no, that's not the problem. It's something else. This is your problem, and here's how to solve it. And then I went to the customer, and again, they told me what the problem was. I solved the problem. I told them how to solve it, and all their focus on was my price, and they tried to push down my price. And I was going like, seriously, you're trying to push down my price? It's so low anyway. And so eventually I spent 2 weeks trying to do the stuff they told me to do. And I won't tell you, because you'll be full of your chairs with laughter, the things that they thought I should do. And eventually I managed to somehow persuade them that what I was saying was in fact correct. And then they listened to me. So they actually lost a lot of time and money because I undercharged.
So
yes,
that's not a strange thing.
Yeah, and Steve says here, right, that there are case stories where product sales have improved when the price was raised by quite a lot, right? And Umar says amazing. So I think so Stevens also says general contractors have learned in the US to give outrageous quotes when people seek them out if they're not busy. This is known as a screw you quote. A screw you quote. $20,000 for bathroom remodel, for example. Sometimes people take. Well, actually, the thing that I think a lot of times is exactly what Heinz was talking before, is that sometimes it's I'm not really interested in actually doing the work unless it's very worth, right? Because there's a lot of work that people want us to do that maybe it's not interesting for you because maybe not being the technology that you want to do. Maybe it doesn't advance your own objectives, right? It could be a work that you do, but it doesn't advance your own objectives. So if you get a job like this and you put a price that is high enough for if they want you to do, then you'd be happy with doing it, right? But it's high enough for you to not get the job. I think that's what Steven's talking about here with the screw you quote, right? That's when you're busy, you're only going to get a job that's like very well paid.
Yeah. Oh, Heinz has disappeared for a second. Maybe he's got something to drink. I just came off a 4-hour webinar. I was just presenting a webinar on solving Java memory leaks.
Oh yeah. I was on at the same time with you. I was doing dynamic proxies. I wanted to go to your talk, and I was like, oh man, I can't go because I'm doing my own.
Oh, you've seen it before. You know everything. It's okay.
But you get paid per visitor, so I was going to be there and
yes,
learn one or two new things, and have some fun.
Yeah,
send some questions through.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask you a question, Kirk.
Yes, sir.
So you've sort of done what we all dream of, right? You've created a company and you've sold to Microsoft, sold the company to Microsoft. So this is like when I was at university, it's like that's what everybody was going to do. We're going to create a company and we're going to sell it to Microsoft. So that's what I want to hear about, because I mean, it's enough about all the stupid stuff we do with quoting and so on. I want to hear about that amazing deal and how you did that.
It was never my plan. I never wanted to sell a company to Microsoft, ever. But
you wanted to sell to somebody, right? I mean, Google, Microsoft, IBM, Red Hat. I mean, who cares? VMware, who cares?
Well,
I mean, everybody wants that. Come and retire on a Greek island. I mean, that's it. Right. What more do you want, right?
Yeah, come on, guys. You're retired in a Greek island, man. I mean, you're doing everything you want in a Greek island. So why are you complaining?
Well, I'm much farther away from that Greek island at the moment than I would like to be. But yes, So it's a funny plan. I mean, I think if you look at a career path, I probably had one of the stranger ones, or maybe highly non-traditional. I mean, I started, my first education, I came out from biochemistry. And then I worked in a university research lab, and then I worked for National Research Council of Canada in a research lab doing biochemistry stuff, right? But when I went to university, we went through a huge economic downturn, meaning that there just simply weren't any summer jobs. So I decided to take some computer courses over the summer instead of working. And at that point, I was mixing, and probably I was the only person in my class that had any computer skills. And that was a differentiator. I mean, I sucked as a biochemist, honestly. I was horrible, right? I ended up almost killing myself being a biochemist. But, people wanted me because they couldn't find anyone who could do the lab work. Well, as I said, they couldn't find anyone who could actually do any of the computer work. I mean, that's less of a problem now. I mean, people come to the table with much more computer skills than they did back then. And then eventually it was just a matter of I went back and got another degree in math after I almost killed myself in the lab. And thought, computer is much safer than working with all of these chemicals, ether with open flame, and anyways, lots of fun. Uh, so
I can really imagine. I'm really bad at that stuff. I would have blown something up for sure.
well, the blowing up would have been cool, right? At least but it's the silent stuff that actually gets you. And so I went off and started doing like pure computer work afterwards. But as a result, I sort of come with this very strong experimental background, much stronger than most people actually infinitely stronger than most people in computing science come out with, right? Experimental process, understanding how to run experiments and dealing with experiments. So when we actually got into like the early stages of what we call like supercomputing and distributed computing and doing things like that, we actually people would start saying like, oh, we need to like figure out how fast things are going and stuff like that. And I'd look at it, go like, okay, that's easy. Experimental process, you do blah, and bang, and everyone's going like, wow, okay, that's how you set up a benchmark. We didn't know. And actually, one of our first efforts actually ended up, and I ended up on a team. We won the Prime Minister's Award for Excellence or something like that. So it was really kind of fun. Yeah, it was weird. We were working for the government of Canada, and they were giving out awards like that.
The Prime Minister, you mean in Canada or what?
Prime Minister of Canada. The Privy Council would award it, actually, which was kind of cool. Which and then you go through some gyrations and stuff like that because I never really had a plan. That's the whole thing, right? I didn't plan on selling a company to Microsoft. I didn't plan on starting a company. There's just it's just like this is like everyone's saying plan.
This has started to make clarity quite late in life, didn't you?
Well, because I did biochemistry for a number of years, I started computing science a little later in life also, right? So yeah, so as you can see, I'm a little later in life and everything like that. But probably at the age of 50 is when we started a startup, right? Which is a perfect age to start a startup. But really, I think J Clarity doesn't happen without any of the experiences that I had before. So even though there didn't seem to be a plan, looking backwards, looking forward, I think there always was in the back of my mind was remaining technical and just sort of keep applying all of the things that I learned going forward, and just having the strong experimental background from running all these experiments in the labs and just having to write papers for journals and stuff like that meant that actually when it came to solving performance issues and things like that, for me it was just like, squiggly lines on paper, look at it, that's what that means. You get a model and drop it in, bang, all of a sudden things come out the other end. And it's really the models that help you understand what's going on, right? So we're always building models, build models, build models, build models. The funny story is that by the time I come out in 2005, remember I flew down to Cape Town to visit you because we went to Johannesburg yes, where I hit your customer in the head with a piece of chocolate.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, and you took out the lights for the entire complex.
No, it was the whole city, Kirk. The whole city. What do you mean?
The whole city, all of Johannesburg. Yeah. So obviously we have more stories there. And on the flight down, I actually woke up, scribbled down some stuff in a notebook, and which was basically a model. That the thing is about teaching, right? So at that time I worked with Jack Shirazi, of course, wrote the very popular Java performance tuning for O'Reilly. And we'd started the workshop together, performance tuning. And I got into the situation where I'm saying like, okay, people aren't getting it. They're not getting it. It's not that the people are not smart. I think, these were incredibly talented people and everything like that. They're not getting it. They're doing things that should be simple and it's not happening, right? So I'm always thinking in my mind, okay, like, you know, this is my fault. It's not that they're stupid. I'm not delivering the material properly. How can I, so I'm always had this thought process, how can I be better at delivering things so that people are more effective and they get it and they can make the stuff more useful. And so what I wrote down in my notebook when I was sleeping on my 12-hour flight from Frankfurt to Cape Town was I woke up and jotted down this little diagram with a few notes, and then went back to sleep. Popped into Heinz's living room in the morning, and I said, okay, now we need to write our talk. And I said, this is going to be the basis of our talk. And I showed Heinz. And you looked at it, and your reaction to me was just priceless. It, you know, boosted my ego 100%, or like really big. Where you said, that's brilliant, right? And we wrote our own whole talk around that. And that little diagram that I wrote was actually the basis for J Clarity.
Really?
Okay. That's why we started J Clarity, was because of that diagram. Okay, and I'm thinking J Clarity doesn't come about if I don't have the background, the experimental backgrounds, right? It doesn't come about if I'm not doing the workshop and writing. So these are all key things because they help crystallize all of these ideas, and they put them out there, and people push back against them and test. And you know, and you know, it's like yesterday, one of my colleagues just pushed out an intrinsic for the JVM to do MD5 work, which gives us a 70x speed up and everything like that. And the trolls hit him, saying, "Oh, you've been wasting your time doing everything like that." And I was thinking, man, I miss trolls. I haven't had trolls for a while, because I haven't been writing for a while. But the there you go, there you go. And the trolls are nice, because if you get past the caustic part of it, there's actually sometimes some very useful information in their posts. And then, you know, so yeah, this is an early version of the whole thing. And as you can see, what I did was I tried to bring some structure into performance tuning. And I said that at the time, no one else was bringing structure into performance tuning. It's very ad hoc. Even today, it's very ad hoc. Brendan Gregg is the only person that I see really attempting to bring structure into performance tuning. We just looked at some Intel stuff a couple of weeks ago when we were talking to the Intel people, and we noticed that they're starting to see ways that they can bring structure into performance tuning. But you know, we wrote this slide in 2005, and I think it's one of the first attempts. I'm not going to say it's the first attempt, but obviously, I mean, anyone who says that is well,
ignorant,
fooling themselves. But I think we're in the Java space. We're definitely a very, very early on attempt to bring structure into the performance tuning space, and really, when we think about it, it's without all of these different experiences that I had, I don't think J Clarity would have happened. And even when J Clarity happened, I mean, you know, like 9 out of 10 startups just failed within their first year. And we almost went down that path because we didn't focus on the right thing. We thought we were, but, you know, we quickly learned that we didn't focus on the right thing. And fortunately, for I don't know how, we managed to be able to pivot and to be able to start focusing on the right thing, and that's Illuminate. Illuminate is our product, and at the core of our product are the ideas that are developed really from this particular thing, this particular tool. It's a diagnostic.
So what's happened to Illuminate now, Kirk?
What's that?
What has happened to Illuminate?
Well, okay, so funny thing is, you know, in 2019, Microsoft came along and snapped us up because Microsoft wants to enter the Java market in a stronger position. So they're starting to dedicate resources across the company to support running Java workflows on Azure. And so they hired a bunch of us because we're big in the community. So Microsoft is buying some community street cred, and they wanted to form a group around our company, our Java engineering group. And we looked at it and said, well, okay, if they're going to follow principles of working in the community and working with the community, then of course that follows our values. So that's one thing I think Heinz and I have always done, is we've followed our values very strongly, and our values are very strongly towards community, which is again why we could start JCREAT and run that particular conference. But anyways, so Microsoft came in and they said, okay, well, these are the things that they want. We like the tooling. So at the moment, I think we got the go-ahead just last week to open source Sensum, which unfortunately has been pulled completely from the market. So it's only used by Microsoft and Microsoft subsidiaries at the moment, and some company in Switzerland, which will remain nameless. So we had to do things to get Sensum to get Sensum usable in that type of environment, and so we've been working on that. So Illuminate's sort of been lying a little bit dormant, but now we're picking up customers with Illuminate, and we're going to use it in a number of live scenarios. So I think, you know, one of the things about going to Microsoft, it's okay. So we got some small bag of money, not out of the whole thing, but you have to look at it slightly differently, in that there's a huge opportunity in the sense that within Microsoft, I can do things with Illuminate that I could never have done on my own.
Yeah, sure.
That's the reason that was one of the main reasons for going was that all of a sudden we have a huge playground called Azure.
Uh-huh.
And we have bags and bags of data that we didn't have access to before, and we can use that to actually make this engine like a reality. And you think that this is a dream that started crystallizing in around 2006 or so. When was that? Johannesburg, 2006, something like that. And
copyright 2006, Kirk, Pepperdine, and Heinz Carbon. So yes.
Yeah. And it started formulating and really crystallizing maybe about 2008 when I was looking at it. Gee, I wish there was some heuristics that we could develop to do this stuff, because this is fuzzy and it requires humans to think about this. And and can we get a machine to do that? And then finally, we finally get the right people together in around 2012, and we start writing the heuristic engine. So we get it out into customer environments, and we go through this whole process of taking something that's conceptually like a weird Baco idea and productizing it to the point now where we're looking at it going like, we can actually have this thing running in every instance in Azure. And it's not only the Java engineering team that's now interested in it. We have .NET is interested in it, and we have other groups within Microsoft that are trying to use AI, artificial intelligence, and other heuristics to improve the performance of workloads. Are interested in the techniques, right? And really, to me, even more than the sale of jQuery to Microsoft and what that means is like, I have this idea that I've been working on for so long, and I finally see that there's a route that it escapes from me and gets into more people and just grows from there. And to me, that's just exceptionally satisfying. And I think it's taken a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of thought, and just a lot of effort to get to this point. So it's not something that you saw where it happened overnight, where one day we're start a company and the next day, bang, Microsoft comes along and buys us for $1 billion.
It took a long time. I mean, I remember the many discussions we had when you were getting this whole thing off the ground, and it's not easy, especially because you were paying developers, and developers are not normally not the cheapest in the world. You had offices in London, and I remember how tough it was, and it took a long time. I mean, you sold it last year, if that's right, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And you started in 2012 at JCREAT with I think you started speaking to Ben, and Martin joined later on.
Yeah.
So it's a long time. That's a long time to hold your breath. 2012, it's 8 years of holding your breath, 7 years of holding your breath. There's a question by Scott. What do you think are the most useful skill sets that help you to succeed?
Writing.
I think it's an interesting question.
Writing. Writing, I think, is the number one skill set. That writing. Yeah. That's writing did more for me than just about anything else that I've done. Just write. Right? And I've noticed the difference. I've stopped writing recently because writing is painful for me. I hate it. It's nothing I enjoy. I actually forced myself to do it because I knew I needed to, and I knew that I was horrible at it. And Heinz, you can attest to how bad I am at actually writing, because I always send drafts to you and you just tear them apart.
Oh, they're bad. They're really bad. They're terrible. Sorry, they really are bad.
But eventually they turn out good.
Writing is that important? I mean, your finished product's always good, but I mean, yeah, it takes a long time to get there.
Yeah, where other people, they just sort of like crank them out, right?
Yeah, I remember, I did this book on dynamic proxies. Bruno says writing is complicated for him too. I did this book on dynamic proxies, and I asked the whole community to help me, and luckily they did, because the end result is much better than it would have been. But then I got Brian Gertz actually wrote a foreword for me, which I'm putting into the second edition, and he just cranked it out. It's like, okay, there you go, boom. It's like he just writes poetry,
Sometimes that happens, though, right? Like I wrote a document yesterday, and I just once through, did the review, we're done, right? And it's beautiful. It works. And sometimes it's just you're just staring at the page, and it's like you write stuff, and it's like going like facepalm. It's horrible. And more often it's the facepalm than anything else. But I think it was just something, and I did get better with it over time, but it's something that I had to continuously keep doing. And now that I stopped, I can't get back. And so you have to, it's just one of those things. But you think about writing around 2001 when I wrote the Ant Developer Handbook with a couple of people.
Yeah.
I actually ended up writing about not 50% of the book, but close to.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I really had no idea. I thought you were just one of like 10 people who added a few things here or there. Like the 97 things every programmer should do, right? Like that one.
Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe explain to the people listening what Ant is, right?
Yeah, what is Ant? Yeah. Well, that's hilarious. I actually happen to have oops. Okay. I actually happen to have my copy here.
Oh, right.
Right. So all the authors were together, except for there's really funny here, right? Eric Hunter's in here. He wrote a competing book at the same time, but so I autographed his book and he autographed mine. He said, "This is weird, but what the hell? It's fun." He's a great guy. Yeah, he wrote for another publisher and everything like that. And so that was, and then I got a kick from the other thing in I think in our careers, there's always somebody that along the way that gives you a kick here and there. And I think without these people, you just don't make it. And I would like to think that I've kicked Heinz a few times, and I definitely know that he's kicked me a few times.
You kicked me about my prices. He said my prices are too low, and he'd kick me and pick me and say, "Kirk, I can't charge the prices that you do." And he said, "Why can't you?" And then I did, and I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe I can." I did.
Yeah, well, I mean, but there's just different aspects and stuff like that, and really, I have to give a shout out to some of the people that you have to give a shout out to the people who've helped you along the way, because no one gets there alone. You have to have people helping you. Certainly, Alan Williamson was responsible for that, and actually, Alan was responsible for my first major feature article in a magazine, Java Developers Journal. And then and then we started writing editorials and things like that, and other articles, and it's just amazing. Like, things flew from, all of a sudden you start writing these things, things started flying from there. All the things just started happening around all of that. And I remember I worked for a company that was basically tanking. So we got out of there into another company that was tanking. But because I'd actually started doing this writing, it actually became, that these companies were tanking around you, that eventually you just, there was no place to jump, right? And it was really the writing that saved me at that point.
If it wasn't for my writing, you wouldn't know about me, and I would not be speaking to this audience right now.
We wouldn't have Jcrete.
Wouldn't have Jcrete.
No.
You wouldn't have. I mean, I would be just an unknown Java programmer somewhere, or probably something else programmers. Maybe I'd be programming PHP or Python. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I would be unknown. And yeah, they're talking about skill stacks. So writing is really important. At school, Kirk, I was okay. So I've never been technically I've never been a good writer, but I've always when I get inspired, then I tend to enjoy it. I tend to really enjoy it.
Writing in anger is so easy.
Writing in anger.
Yeah.
Or what?
Inspired.
Inspired, yes. Writing inspired I find very easy. So what helps me, for those of you listening, what helps me a lot with writing is that I sort of make this mental commitment that I'm writing one Java specialist's article every month. Now, I've missed a few months, but Jack Shirazi has missed 1 month since he started, and he started 1 month after me. So he's missed a single month because of computer trouble. And besides that, every single month, Jack Shirazi, towards the end of the month, you're going to get an email from him. So I'm not as good, but I've done quite a few. I've done about 282 articles. That's 20 years of articles. And I force myself to do it every month. And by forcing it every month, I mean, it's completely stupid to force myself every month, but that way at least I don't not do it. It's sort of, I remember it. And so just having a commitment and saying, I'm doing this like once a month, even if it's difficult, because you've got this commitment, you're doing it once a month, at least something goes out.
And I wrote for IBM Developer Works on a schedule.
That's so difficult, eh?
It's so you gain a new respect for people who are basically cranking out material like in columns on a daily basis or even on a weekly basis. You just look at it and go like, how do they do that? Week after week, month after month, year after year. It is really, when IBM finally came in and says, well, you've had your run after like 18 months, I was going like, oh, thank you.
I was writing. I'm going to put quotes in that. I was writing for a German magazine, and the first month, and the worst was they were paying me to write. Right?
Yes.
So paying me, I don't know, €1,000 whatever to write an article, and I was waiting for Hedy, I don't think it's appropriate to post. So I don't know where does this link take us. I don't know.
What are we posting?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what I was saying.
What's about your book, Our Problem? Is that what you're talking about? No, that's not your book.
No. It's, sorry. What I wanted to say is, when I get paid to write, it puts extra pressure on me. And so the first month, I took one of my old newsletter articles and I just translated it into this really rough German. And I said, here you go. And I was waiting for them to come back and say, oh, no, we can't accept that. That's not original work. You've already published that in English. But they didn't. They actually said, "Oh, thanks. Okay, cool." And they fixed the German and they published it. And then the next month, the deadline was coming, or 2 months later, the deadline was coming up again. And I was like, "Oh, what am I going to write? I've got to think of something." And then eventually I just took another article and translated that into German and gave it to them. And I kept this up for like about 1.5 years. And at the end, when I said, "Look, I can't do this anymore," it was such a relief to stop.
Yes, that was, yeah, IBM made us keep 3 months in advance. So we had to have 3 months of articles in the pipeline, which you would think would make it easier, but it actually doesn't. It's just horrible. So you spend all your time thinking, okay, what am I going to write about next? What am I going to write about next? And I had Brian Getz was actually my editor. And it got worse because he was going like, oh, well, Kirk's writing about all these performance stuff. I like writing about performance stuff. Now he writes about performance stuff, and now I see that he's effectively, quote unquote, stolen my topics. And that he's written about something that I was going to write about. And I go like, okay, now I need to come up. So, idea stack gets worse. But I have to say that, even though it's frustrating and it's sometimes can be difficult, it's one of the, I have to tell you, I don't know where I'd be without writing. I'd be nowhere. No, absolutely nowhere. And it's a skill that just translates across just about everything you do. So I think that's probably one of the most important things that I did. Like I said, we wouldn't have met. There'd be no J-Creek. There'd be all, Bruno, we wouldn't be talking here. There's just nothing would be happening without it. Nothing. So that's the key point.
I agree, and the little trick that I know, I'm pretty much like you, Kirk. Writing for me, it's very painful. A lot of people tell me that I write well, and everything, but for me, it's extremely painful. I take too long, and I procrastinate a lot on it and everything. So two things that have been helping me. One is writing 5 minutes every single day, right? So this, I commit to write every single day for at least 5 minutes. Doesn't matter what.
Yeah.
So that's 5 minutes thing for me is good, because if I get to the end of the day and I figure out I didn't write 5 minutes today, I can always spend, just kind of get before I go to bed, spend 5 minutes and write something, right? So having 5 minutes a day, and it's small enough that I can force myself to do it without getting mad.
I think the other thing is I've always had a routine. I started when I was working in the government, because we'd get daily briefings in the morning. And so it just got me into a routine where I liked reading and just having time to myself to get myself organized in the morning for the day. And if you're going to do writing, it's about that time. Right. But what I noticed is that, like I do the procrastination, all that stuff about writing and everything like that. I'm doing it now because I have to write something, and I'm on this webinar instead of writing, or I'm doing something else instead of writing. But last weekend on Saturday, I started writing at 8 in the morning, and at 5:30 or 6, I looked up and I said, "Oh, the day's gone." So if you do get in the groove, you got to be able to take advantage of it. And I think fortunately, Heinz and myself have been in a position where we're a little bit flexible on schedules, meaning that I think here's the other thing. It's like the 9 to 5 grind, I think, just beats the creativity out of you. You just need to take time for yourself, and if your employers don't like that, then I would say, somehow they have to understand that, like, if your software is a creative process, right? You're trying to solve problems and stuff like that. I heard some story the other day. It was I don't know where it's from, but effectively, apparently was from some guy working in a construction firm, running the software, the IT department or something like that, right? And the boss came out and she said, "You know how I know that we're being productive in the field?" said, I hear lots of hammers. I said, when I walk in here, I don't hear lots of keyboards, like keys clacking. And he's going like, that's such a horribly bad analogy.
That's hilarious. Don't hear lots of keyboards typing.
Okay. So, and I thought that's a bad analogy, right?
That's the advantage of the computers, that you could put the sound of the keyboard typing outside, right? So that's not a problem at all.
But sometimes you just like you maybe if you've been following my Twitter feed, I've been taking lots of pictures of strange places. And this is like it's mostly because of the pandemic, right? It's like I'm in an area where it's fortunate that I can get out and not be at risk. And I decided, I was experimenting with my iPhone, so I said, I wonder what kind of quality pictures I can get with my iPhone. So I put them up and everything like that, once a day. Fresh photos from the walk before, but and my wife's going like, isn't it boring? One of those like 2-hour walks? I'm going like, actually not, because I'm not just walking out there. Yeah, I'm enjoying the scenery, but I'm also mulling through problems. Oh yeah, that's the one I put up today. I'm mulling through problems in my mind, and sorting things out. And actually, when I finally do get to looking at the problem, I can generally rip through the problem, right? I'm not thinking about it anymore, I'm executing on it, right? So even though I'm out on this 2-hour walk, it's not like I'm 2 hours away from anything. It's like I am actually doing something.
Right. Kirk, can I just interrupt with just 1 minute here? So, we're going to continue here a little bit more, but we're on the top of the hour, and I just want to tell everyone that right now it's starting a new batch of presentations, right? Since we have a little bit more time here at the stage, right? We can keep Kirk coming a little late, so we can actually give him a little bit more time. But right now, there's going to be 3 sessions starting, right? 10 golden lessons with Rafael Del Nero. He's gonna do a mentoring right now. Also, Eyal Wiransky will talk about introduction to machine learning, and Barry Bird is gonna do try something new, writing and teaching, right? So exactly the thing that Kirk is talking about. Barry is gonna talk about how you can do writing. And now, one thing I want to tell you is that Altug had a connection problem, so he couldn't come here on the time of his presentation. So he'll do it now. Right, so also Altug is going to do domain storytelling, and that's going to start right now too. So if you want to go to any of those sessions, we're also going to put the links on the chat in a minute. And as soon as we wrap this up here, we're also going to talk about skills here at the main stage in a few minutes. All right, sorry.
It's late to treat, so I'm gonna sign off. Thanks for.
Oh, I got one
sorry
more
for extending
you.
hour.
Before you go, before you disappear, I know it's getting late there. So how you can spot the good photographer from the bad photographer?
Tell us.
Okay, so the good photographer takes 10,000 photographs and throws away 9,999 of them.
Yeah, sure.
Right. The bad photographer takes about a dozen, but doesn't throw any of them away. Right.
Right, okay.
So I might look like a good photographer here, but
good night. Thanks very much for having me.
Kirk, it was awesome to have you here, man. Thanks a lot. And I really appreciate both of you, actually, but really appreciate that since you're leaving now. I really appreciate that you part here. This has been a long time dream of kind of running a career event. So, and I'm glad that we're able to do this in such a nice way that we can be talking here. So, thanks a lot, Heinz. It was awesome to have you here, man. Thanks a lot.
That's a stock photo. You didn't take that. Okay, see there. Well, right. What can you say when you're having a conversation with someone you go back a long way with?
Right. Yeah, that's true. So actually, I'm not sure if you touched all the points that you want to talk about, things that your father had told you, right? And I'm also not know how long you still have here, but let me tell you this, Kirk. We do have a room for you. So if you want to do, if you want to spend more time in talking directly with people and having a conversation like this for more people, that's we have a room for you that you can stay at if you want to, or you can talk a little bit more here also, no problem.
Yeah, I don't have
What do you want to do?
a lot more time because I need to actually write up some notes on Illuminate, which we talked about earlier.
Right.
We're trying to re-architect it to make it more communicative and communicate with the nodes communicate with each other to get more complex diagnostics and things like that. But yeah, so I'm supposed to meet with some of our guys to do that very shortly. But I don't know.
So before you go, tell us what is the one thing you wish you had known, or you wish your father had told you that would be that changed your life when you learned from someone else, right? So what is the one thing that you think all of us should know? I mean, you talk about lots of different things here so far, but
I know, and it's really kind of funny because when I think, when you think back, right? I mean, thinking back is obviously different than looking forward because, who would have known we'd all be in lockdown now, right? Because of all the crap that's happened. But more to that, I think, is there one thing? I don't know. I mean, I don't think Heinz learned one thing from his dad that was helpful. It was more of a lifestyle or whatever, or more of a just like an osmotic process of learning, like just all kinds of little things, little habits and things like that. And I think the way that I worked and the way my wife worked, and actually my brother-in-laws and things like that, right? And I think my kids are around us doing that. They're looking at it going, I think they see it as different. They definitely see life as different because, I'm doing traditional 9 to 5 now, but, for so many years when they're growing up, I didn't. And it's not so much, the things that they directly tell you. It's just observing the everyday habits that you have to develop in order to be able to make it on your own and run your own business, right? All of the things that you have to know. I guess the only thing is that it's something that I did do, but I tell other people. I've even told my kids, like it doesn't matter what you're taking in school, what subject it is, right? Take a few business courses on the along the side, right? You always have electives when you go for your degree. Make a couple of business courses your choice as part of the elective. There's just some fundamental things. I mean, I took a little bit of accounting, a little bit of economics, and I took a little bit of business courses, as well as my main degree in math. Yeah, and so I know enough of these other things to be completely useless and dangerous, but at least I know enough. It's been helpful, shall we say, rather than not knowing anything. It starts giving you a basis to jump from, I think. So I think that's about the only thing. It's just like guidance during school. We certainly something I did with my kids that my parents didn't do because they just didn't know. But it was just giving guidance to my kids when they were selecting courses and saying, like, ultimately the choice is yours, but you might find this useful later on.
Right.
So that's about it, I think.
Cool. Very cool. Very awesome. And I like a lot this whole idea of having this little habits that actually kind of make your life happen, right? So this is not it's very rare, like just one big thing. It's a lot more like small things. That's why someone was saying here that what is that? So someone say here that the 5-minute trick helped him too, right? So
Yeah.
I missed that. Oh yeah, the Rodrigo said the 5 minutes mind trick worked very well for me, because like this little habits of everyday things, right?
I'm not seeing that chat channel, and I would like to, because I clicked on event.
Yeah, so events the chat for the whole event. Stage is a chat for
Gotcha. Okay, sorry. Okay, now I can see everybody here.
And then now you're gonna see Bruno Borges is here, right? So he just said, hey.
Oh,
right?
is Bruno's in the room?
Yeah, he just said, hey, yes.
Oh, can we bring him up to the main stage then?
We could, yeah.
I work with Bruno, for everybody who's out there, and yeah, he's it's one of the benefits that I found of working, after we got bought. It was like, actually Bruno's a part of that story. I mean, it's conversations that I had with Bruno that actually eventually helped make that whole thing happen. So Bruno's, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, let's see if he clicks on the link. If he does, then he can join. I can't bring him, but he can
volunteer. Okay. Hey Bruno, come join us here on the main stage.
Right.
You can transfer focus from me to Bruno, because Bruno's an interesting character in his own right.
Yeah.
Cool. And even yourself, Bruno. I mean, your story is interesting. I mean, you started what turns out to be like the largest jug in almost the world, I would think, right?
Yeah, I know this. We are in São Paulo, right? So that's a big city, a big jug, right? That's a good thing.
You didn't plan. You didn't really plan that, right? You just wanted to do something fun.
Yeah, we did. When we were doing this, to be very honest, we got a sponsorship from Sun, and so I was one of the people that actually started the user group. And some people said, "Oh, Bruno, you should be the president of the group." I said, "No, I'm not going to be, right. I can't be that, right. I work from Sun. I want you guys, the community, to actually do this." So we got a sponsorship from Sun, and that sponsorship was enough for us to buy 300 T-shirts and hats, and there's something else. We had 3 things that we're going to give out to people that register for it, right? So we said, well, we're gonna get like 300 people register for it, and so maybe we can get. So we're gonna get a sponsorship to buy 300 T-shirts, 300 hats, and 300 something else, right? There's like 300 kits for everyone that joined the user group, right? And we never told this to anyone, right? Just kind of say, yeah, this is gonna be cool, because when you get your 300, we can give all of that to people, and then we got 3,000 people registering for the user group in 2 days, right?
Yeah.
It was like, what? We didn't even have time to say stop, right? Let's get the first 300. So, can you resend the link to Bruno? Yeah. So Bruno is. So the link is on Hopping, Bruno. You go here on people. I mean, there's a little message icon all the way to the top, Bruno. That's where you're going to see the message. Maybe I could send it to him over Twitter. That could work.
Okay. Go to Twitter.
Yeah.
There. I'm back channeling him on an internal channel.
Right. Okay. So yeah, let's do it here. Okay. I'm trying to not get away from the window here. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Oh, that's it. There he is. All right.
There he is. There's Bruno. Howdy, Bruno.
Hello.
Hey, Bruno, how you doing, man?
I'm good.
See you.
Well, oh, my hair. Oh, God.
Your hair always looks that way.
No, it was a lot bigger last week, but then my wife decided enough is enough, and she made the cut herself. So,
okay.
This is the
at least
best that she could do. It's good.
Yeah. At least you have hair, so that's fine.
Yeah. So for all of us, for the audience, Bruno and I actually work together inside Microsoft, and so we're constantly butting heads on different ideas, because the thing is, like, if you put 2 highly creative, passionate, intelligent people in the same room, there's sparks are going to fly, but hopefully at the end of the day, what comes out of that room is going to be awesome. And so I think we've been working on some things that are going to be actually awesome.
Yeah, always.
End of the day.
It's always good to debate ideas with other smart people. I think having a third person helps. So you know when to stop debating and just come to conclusions and move forward. We do have the pleasure of having folks like that in our group. And sometimes we come to that if we like. I think we are spending too much time debating this thing. Let's bring a third person here and let's come to a conclusion. And we do that. And very often we come to decisions that were the best decisions that we could possibly come to. And that's for the benefit of everyone. So healthy debates, healthy ideas being discussed with smart people, it's always good. And there's a lot of respect in our group here at Microsoft. Microsoft values a lot that sort of interaction in teams. So spend as much time as you can, but make sure you don't start wasting time, because then you're not actually moving things forward. So it's good that we learned these things at Microsoft and along the years as well with other companies and other people. I guess this comes back to the whole career development thing, making sure that you discuss in a healthy, respectful way. And Kirk and I, we have very strong opinions on everything, but always we are very clear, hey, maybe we should not, maybe we should stop debating this thing because it feels like it's derailing from the focus of this conversation. And then we stop, we pause, we breathe, and then we continue in a different way.
So the trick is, Bruno, we always stop when we've argued to my position, and then we say, well, arguing any further is just a waste of time, right?
I mean,
you didn't notice that yet. Sorry, I shouldn't have said anything. So, I guess one of the things I've always thought, that I've always tried to be is the dumbest person in the room, right? And I've always been happiest when I've been the dumbest person in the room, because really that's the time when you have the most opportunity to learn things. So yeah, and if you're not the dumbest person in the room, it's time to change rooms, I think. That's my opinion. So, and you need people to challenge you, your ideas, because, I don't know, there's, at conferences, they give you the forms to fill out and say, what do you like, what you don't like, and stuff like that, right? And we do for workshops, right? And I immediately go for the stuff that what people didn't like, because I find that that's the most helpful. That's where I'm going to learn the most. If somebody says I liked it, but you could have done this better, that's also useful. I'm happy because that gives you the ego boost, right? And you have to take it. You have to put some balance in it, because I've had I've had reviews where somebody saying like too basic, couldn't understand it, too basic, boring, and then the next review you read is like too complicated. You need to break it down further. It's like, so there's a bit of that going on. But generally I find just looking for those types of criticism. Where did Bruno go to? Yaml rocks. Okay, there he is. Okay, I thought he dropped off. Looking to be the dumbest person in the room and trying to sort out, okay, where are the points where we can improve, and if you present, so I'm presenting stuff to Heinz all the time, because I know he's going to look at me and start laughing, and he's going to laugh really hard, and then when he's finished laughing, then we can probably have a serious discussion as to why I was doing and why it was so dumb, and how to make it better, and so I'm generally always looking for people I can debate with like that to make things better. And fortunately, Bruno is one of those people. So and so I really appreciate that.
Thanks, Kirk.
Yeah, just making things better. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So Bruno, how did you get started at Microsoft? How did you get started at all in what you're doing?
How did it get started? That's a very short question for a very long answer.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, I don't want to get this too long, so I'll just say
Bruno, your sound was great, and suddenly it became very bad.
Okay, so I'm gonna reboot my microphone here. 1 sec.
All right.
Oh, okay. That'll make his short answer even longer.
How's this now?
Oh, yeah. You need to go and get Josh to buy you one of these.
Oh yeah, because this is better now.
No.
Oh, Jesus.
Still kind of scratchy and but that's just laptop microphones. What is that? What did you get? Is that like a Radio Shack karaoke thing?
This is
it sounds like you're using the laptop microphone, so that's why it's kind of like this. I don't think you're using that microphone. So
are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Go ahead. No, don't worry. Go ahead.
It was supposed to be awesome because it was freaking expensive. Okay, so let's try. I started a long time ago, 20 years ago, and I worked as a Java developer until 2015 when I joined Oracle as a product manager. But I didn't actually work as a product manager full time. I did a lot of developer relations stuff, and that was sort of a continuation as a paid job with the stuff that I was doing in the previous years without getting paid for. And when I left Oracle, I joined Microsoft to be a full-time paid employee for doing developer relations. So it was awkward. Like, life took me in an awkward ways through my career. I didn't choose to be a product manager at Oracle. It just happened. And then I didn't choose to be a developer relations person per se, and it just happened. I never thought about it at the beginning. So it's really like a kind of natural flow that life took me over the years. And now I'm at Microsoft because Microsoft had an awesome opportunity for Java developers to come here and help build the story. You know, Microsoft uses Java, Microsoft builds stuff for Java developers, and they were like, okay, we just need to help show these things. So can you come and join us to help that? So I decided, yes, let's do that. And now we have this Java engineering group where I work with Kirk and other folks, many of them who are Java champions here in the company. And it's a really unique opportunity. It's funny because when I started working as a Java developer, one of my dream job was I want to work for Sun Microsystems. Yeah. And then it was funny because I ended up working for Oracle a couple of years after Oracle acquired Sun. And now I'm working at Microsoft, which is like back in the old days, it was like the anti-Java company, right? So it's weird, everything that happened. Yeah. The weirdest thing, it's actually on personal life. Today I live in Canada, in Vancouver. And when my wife and I got married back in 2011, Vancouver is actually where I was just 3 days before my marriage celebration party for an Apache Foundation conference. And now I'm here, living here, working for Microsoft, doing Java stuff. So it's like the whole thing is just crazy, and it's just like how life took me. Yeah. That answers the question?
I had an offer from Sun. Yes, it does. I had an offer from Sun, and I turned it down. And I just think, we wouldn't be here if I hadn't have turned it down. Because again, I turned it down because I looked at the PE ratios and a few others, and I said, this is not going to end well. Right? So that's why I actually put the offer down.
Kirk, you are the only person that I know now that looked into that data point to help decide whether you would take a job or not.
Seriously?
Yes.
I don't think I'm the only person that actually does that. I mean, of course.
You are the first one for me. Like, I'm sure there are people there.
Yeah.
I mean, all my circle of friends, you are the first one.
So probably here's another odd story, right? This is about interviewing. so I'm not really a fan of interviews, traditional interviews, because I don't know exactly how useful they are. I mean, I went into one interview and the guy basically said, I was working for Gemstone at the time, which is like, we're doing object databases, right? And so because we're doing object databases, of course, we didn't do any JDBC work at all, because why would you? We have a persistent store. It's right there, And so I went in for another job interview. This is when Gemstone was starting to tank. And the guy looked at me and says, okay, I'm going to give you, I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions here on JDBC. And he said, have you ever used it? And I answered honestly saying no. And then he took the paper and he turned it over and he said, basically, we're done. And I'm going like, hold on a second. This is, just because I haven't used it doesn't mean, and I know lots of things about JDBC because we've had to, because we do database stuff, and of course, and he went through a whole list of questions. But at the end of it, he said, "Oh, I should be a product manager." Bruno, could you imagine me being a product manager?
I think it would be interesting.
Yes, it would be a disaster. Come on. It would just tell the truth. It'd be
I think it would. I think we all product teams need a Kirk.
Oh, okay, where's this going?
That is a good one. All right, that is a good one.
Okay, should I finish my story and then you can say where it's going? Because I went in when I interviewed for Gemstone. They put me in with the CFO, and it's a small company, so I interviewed with him, right? And I think most of the technical people came in and said, technical bullshit, right? That the CFO had no clue about. I went and asked him financials. And they said, well, why'd you do that? And I said, well, I wanted to make sure that you have enough revenue and pipes and stuff like that you can actually pay me at the end of the day. We can keep a job. You want to make sure the company's healthy. So yeah, of course you would look at data points like that. He really appreciated the conversation. We're reviewing contracts as part of the interview. It's kind of fun.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So here's a career advice I'll share. How did I get at Oracle? That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And how I ended up working for Oracle USA in the United States, in California. I literally asked for a job at Oracle. I went to a person in the US who I knew and respected, and I said, hey, could you help me find a job at Oracle? And he was like, I'll look into it. And then he came back with a position in Brazil. Yeah, there is this role in Brazil. You may try it. And then I applied. And then I got the invitation to go to São Paulo and get and talk to the manager, the hiring manager. And then during our conversation, I felt like he was already convinced of hiring me, because the conversation was really good and he got recommendations, and it was just obvious that I was a good candidate. I felt I was a good candidate. And then he asked me, like, why Oracle? Like this stupid question, where do you see yourself in 5 years, like, kind of thing. And I'm like, I'm gonna give him this straight answer. Like, I want to be working in the United States in 3 years, for Oracle USA in 3 years. And he was like, okay, I'll help you out doing that if you help me doing the things that I need for the next 3 years. So at that right moment in my job interview, I got a verbal agreement with my manager that he would help me get into Oracle USA, and I would help him getting the things that he needed for the 3 years, right? So that thing, I felt like it was a great gentleman agreement that between an employee and manager. And of course, I was lucky that he was a great manager, and I respect him until today. Yeah. So that is a career advice I would share. Like, make sure you're very clear what you're looking for from the company, and don't be shy of sharing that. If they say, yeah, we'll give it a try, whatever, like, okay, then you can also give it a try in providing whatever they are looking for from you, that if that's the agreement. But don't be shy of sharing that, because you don't want to get them by surprise one day when you say, I'm tired of this and I just want to move forward.
Yeah.
So
especially because on when you start on the interview, that's a perfect moment for you to negotiate this kind of thing, right? Because that's exactly when you have the negotiation power to actually decide if that's a good move for you or not. So a lot of people, we had this story of a guy here in Brazil that we had a contest, and this guy won the contest, right? It was like a development contest, and he won the contest, and he won a trip to Java One as a prize. And so, but his biggest dream was to get a job as a Java developer. And then when he got a job as a Java developer, he was afraid to tell the company that, I won this trip to Java One, right? And because he was afraid that if he said that, they would not hire him, right? And so basically, he gave up the trip to Java One because he never talked to the company about the prize that he won. I mean, so it's like, man, what are you doing, right? This is the right moment for you to talk about. They are hiring you exactly because you won the contest, right? So that's it. So you gotta benefit from what you won. But so I totally agree with you, Bruno. This is you really gotta. That's the moment you negotiate and you talk about. You be frank and discuss things, because that's the best moment by far.
That's why you missed Java One that year.
Sorry.
That's why you missed Java One that year.
No. I
So
I only missed Java One. I only missed Java One the first time. The first Java One is the only one that I missed. So,
yeah.
So just to wrap up here, because I have to drop now, but I'll just add that I repeated that strategy when I joined Microsoft. I joined Microsoft to be part of the DevRel team, but I said, I'm looking for one day to be part of a product team. And I was very clear about that. And that's where I am right now. So I left DevRel last year and I joined the Java engineering group, where we work with product development and being part of Kirk's team. It's really awesome. So
I didn't realize you stated that up front, because we were looking for a product manager and said, oh, Bruno's here. Let's ask him.
Yeah.
So it happened, but maybe not quite in yeah. Anyways, it's weird. But
I didn't.
Bruno's like you got lucky because you had good managers, right? Because I know that I went into an interview once and we got to the end and they asked you like so you're here. What are we going to do with you? Type 5-year question, right?
Kirk, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to say goodbye. Thank you so much for having me here. Bruno, I would love to be part of any other conversations in the future. Happy to participate. I won't be able today, but anything that you have in the future, just feel free to reach out. Love to.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bruno. Thanks for jumping in. That's awesome.
Thank you. Bye.
Over here also in a minute, but yeah, I was going to say, Bruno's lucky he had a good manager, because I've gone in and people ask the question and you're honest with them, and that's what killed the whole deal.
Right. Well, but if it kills the deal, then it's better that the deal doesn't happen then, right? Because you had other priorities.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I quite honestly, I think that deal would have worked out well for both of us anyways.
Right.
But that they decided to kill the deal, I thought was a bit whimsical. And quite frankly, again, so this interview process, I think it's just it's hit and miss. It's hit and miss, and I find that my strategy for the interviews is just to say, like one of the last interviews I went on to. So this friend of mine was running this company actually in Hungary, and we were there, and so he wanted me to come over and interview for a job and everything like that. And about half hour into the interview process, after they're describing everything, I basically measured up what they were doing, and what their issues were, and everything, right? And so at the end of it, so I basically then started saying, okay, now I'm going to play consultant. I'm going to start asking them questions. And I started just basically interrogating them for the rest of the interview process. And at the end of it, he says, well, what do you think? And I said, well, here's your 5 main challenges. And I went 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And they said, okay, what do you want? So I gave them a price and conditions like that. And they were quite strange. Well, it was quite funny because they had never had anyone make conditions on them like I did before. But, you know, for me, they were quite normal. So I don't know why. I guess it's a European, North American difference or something. And so basically I never got an offer from them, right? But I did meet the CEO about a year later. And he said, yeah, a year and a half, something like that. And we just ran into each other. And he said to me, he says, you know the 5 things that you said were going to happen? He said, they all happened. Every single one of them, right? And it's not that I was a genius or not or anything like that. I guess it's just when you go in, I think it's important that you do ask a lot of questions. You do, because that's the only way you're going to discover if that position is right for you. I mean, everyone goes into this whole thing like, oh, I'm going to get a job and everything like that and everything. It's like, no, man, we're in the computing industry. And we can be, I'll use the word, a bit arrogant about things at this point in time because we're in demand. We're in high demand.
Right.
Which means that we're looking for a job, but it's not just, you know, like, please hire me, you're begging. You're coming to the table with a high level of skill, right? And so it's not just the point where I hope I get this job, I hope I get this job. Yeah, okay, there's jobs where I'm saying like, yeah, I hope I get it and everything like that. Sure, because there's some desirable aspect to them. But also it's, you know, but there was some desirable aspect to them. And during the interviewing process, I asked enough questions to understand that, yeah, this is not going to be a grungy job that I don't like in 6 months from now. There's actually going to be some desirable aspects that they're going to be of interest, and they're going to allow me to stay there and be happy with what I'm doing also. So it's not, this is like a dance, right? You want to make sure that they're happy with you, but you also want to make sure that you're happy with them.
Right.
You know, I think that's an important aspect. So yeah, go ahead, ask all the questions that are important to you. I mean, you know, if you're moving to the US in 3 years, that's the perfect question to ask. You're right. It's the time to get these things out on the table so that everybody knows what they're getting into, right? And there's no point in hiding anything because they're going to find out very shortly anyways.
Right. And especially because, you know, it's once you talk about this and they say, look, no, we're not interested in doing this in 3 years. You can say, okay, that's fine. So I'm okay. I'm not going to move to the US in 3 years then. Right. So what can I do? Right. So, you know, we can, yeah, let me just kind of, my dog is.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Those.
Don't let the monkeys in.
Yeah. I got to put one of those little doors that the dog can come in and out, right? So Rodrigo says, I learned so much about performance in 2 hours listening to Kirk talking about InfoSig, InfoQ events. 1 year in 2 hours. Very smart person. So thanks a lot.
Yes. Be sure to have the Swift account right. I'll pay you for that. You know, so you get paid. Yeah, I'm humbled when people think that I'm actually so much smarter than I really am. So, and I think we're blessed to be in an industry where we just deal with smart people every day, and it's just, to me, it's so exciting and everything. And I love it. Thank you for the comment, Rodrigo. Yeah, if you learn something from the effort, then I'm very good. I'm humbled from the whole thing, everything.
Yeah.
You paid the beer that time, didn't you? Probably they did. I don't know. Unless John Davies was around, I might have and everything. So that's good.
So, yeah.
It was fun. We're getting to the point where I'm going to have to.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little bit worried about your time because you said you had to go exactly 40 minutes ago. So
Well, I said I had to go shortly because I have to write, and this is now writing avoidance technique, right?
Yes. All right, I see. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
Okay.
So Kirk, thanks very much, man. I'm not gonna hold you anymore. So thanks very, very much. It was awesome to have you here, and thanks for taking so much time, man. It's kind of having this conversation. We could have the conversation the whole afternoon, and although we can't be in J. Crete having this conversation, at least you can go online.
Oh God, yeah, I missed J. Crete this year very badly, very, very badly. Yeah, you don't. I think for the whole week at J. Crete, I was just basically moping around, because just the level of interaction, the intensity of the interaction, the passion, the influence that people have, the things you can take away. I mean, in terms of the influence and stuff like that, it's absolutely incredible. Again, I'm so happy that Heinz and myself were able to kick this off. And it's really funny because now we practically do nothing. We have all our minions that do basically, 5 minutes of work a day for a month. And, and all of the tasks are so well known to everyone, and everybody does their tiny, tiny little part that we're left with nothing to do but just to enjoy the event. So,
right.
Rock on, man. And thank you for putting such a wonderful event together. I don't know if everybody out here realizes just how many amazing things that Bruno has done for the community.
Thanks, man.
One of them. And just the way you set this up is just, I've learned something from this event today.
Awesome.
I hope to take away and be able to in the future. Thank you very much, Bruno.
No problem. Thank you, man. So it was a very organic event, right? A lot of the speakers kind of volunteered to come here, and kind of speakers chose the time they want to talk about, right? So it's pretty, as you said, right? A lot of people want to help, so it's good. There's a lot of effort from a lot of people,
and that's a statement from the organizer. That's a statement. I mean, quite frankly, if you had a lot of people helping, that's on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's precisely on you. They came because of you.
Thank you.
So yeah, please keep it up, and all the best to you and everything. Okay.
Yeah, sure, Kirk. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for being
guys.
here.
Thank you for listening to our ramblings, and we'll hopefully meet again in person very soon.
Yeah, for sure. Bye. Very soon. All right. Thanks a lot, man. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.